Call Sawyer County Public Works meeting to order. Ask the clerk to call a roll, please.
Ron Kinsley,
Here.
Mark Howard, Ed Peters.
Here.
Dale Olson.
Here.
Brian Bissonnette.
Let the record indicate we have a quorum. Certification, open meetings law.
The meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. The meeting agenda is in front of us. There's no changes to it. Go to number 5, public comment. Ms. Zilmer.
I'd like to be recognized under agenda items H, B, and C. When you get to that, please.
Thank you. Chris, can't read your last name.
Most people can't. Struck national.
Do you want to speak now?
Yeah, just also commenting on item agenda item 8. As far as the ATV route designation.
Okay.
Yeah, is that something you want to hear our comments now or when we get to that?
I'd rather hear them now, but if you want to speak then I'll allow it.
Okay. My comments, I'm representing Hayward Area Chamber of Commerce.
Come up to the speaker.
Oh, sure.
Quick. You have to leave that door open.
Yeah, just in representation of the Hayward Area Chamber of Commerce, what I want to speak to, of course, is the economic benefits we've actually seen from many other routes that we've had open up in the area over the last several years. I was encouraged to see this as a discussion item. Folks like Gary have a lot more expertise in terms of what's possible safety-wise and what's doable that way. But I just mainly want to speak to the economic facets. We've just seen a lot of businesses benefit from the addition of a lot of routes that are connecting either the end of one trail to another trail or getting ATVs to businesses where they previously could not. So yeah, I certainly would be in favor of that strong consideration for opening those additional routes.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak to the committee?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is Carl Kemper with Becker Hoppy Associates.
Yes.
Well, it looks like you're lucky enough that this is an audio-only conference, so you don't have to see my mug. But again, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I think this may be covered later by the airport manager, Mr. Leslie, during his airport manager's report. I just wanted to inform the committee. Again, my name is Carl Kemper. I'm project manager for Becker Hoppy Associates. We have provided a letter of interest to the BOA, to Chair Kinsley, to Administrator Hoff, and to Mr. Leslie for providing engineering services during upcoming improvements at the Sawyer County Airport. We've appreciated the opportunity to serve Sawyer County on airport projects since 2010, when the airport was facing many challenges. A lot of great things have happened at the airport since then, since we were fortunate enough to come on board and help you all out. We feel that we work well with the BOA and county personnel. Again, I really think you should all be proud of your airport, and we'd be honored to continue providing services to you all on your upcoming endeavors. That concludes my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brad Volker.
Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, hi, Public Works Committee. Similar to Carl that just spoke, I'm Brad Volker and I'm with Cooper Engineering from Rice Lake. We also submitted a letter of interest to Matt Messina at the Bureau of Aeronautics and copied to some of your folks. We're very interested in providing engineering services for your upcoming runway project and whatever other associated projects that might involve. We've worked at your airport in the past. I would agree with Carl. You have a very nice airport, and I would say that that's a very large part due to Carl and Becker Hoppy's work in recent years. But we're very interested in working for you again. We've done work there in the past, enjoy working with your folks there. And just want you to know we're very interested and think we can do a great job and we're close to home. And that concludes my comments, and I'll probably bow out for the rest of your meeting.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. We'll move forward. Number 6, consideration of minutes from the previous meeting of September 8th. Is there any questions on the minutes presented?
Approval of minutes.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Olson to approve the minutes as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 7, Sawyer County Airport. Letter A, Airport Managers Report. Does anybody have any questions on this report? Anything you would like to add, Mr. Leslie?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to reiterate the comments that were just made by the engineers, Brad and Carl. It's nice to hear other people say good things about our airport, not just me all the time. If any members of the committee would like to review their proposals, I can readily make that available. Pretty good read. There's 3 proposals in particular. One was from another company, I believe Westwood from southern Wisconsin. It's really interesting kind of reading about the proposal process and all the different assets and parts to the airport that go into doing a project like this. It really goes into some pretty significant detail, and members of the committee would be good to review that and look at it and educate yourselves.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Leslie? Hearing none, we'll move to letter B, hangar lease sales, discussion and possible action. Number 1, hangar decrement. Mr. Huff, you want to take this, please?
You want to take it there?
Sure.
Derek is.
I think there was a little confusion going into the meeting here tonight. Mr. Labar is here present at the meeting tonight. So I don't know if any of the members of the committee would like to hear from him. I put it in my airport report that this is a good thing. It's really nice when hangar owners at the airport, and I think every airport faces this problem when individuals either age out because they can't get medicals anymore, or they sell their airplanes. It's important to the process for guys to protect the integrity to the system and let other people step in to fill the gap. You know, and I believe that's kind of what's happening here with Mr. Burton and Mr. Labar is it's kind of passing the mantle over to the next generation to continue having the airport used for the things that it was supposed to be used for. So I'd like to just speak in favor of the committee approving this happening. I know we have a right to first refusal. Any hangar transaction happening at the airport, the committee needs to consider the right to first refusal on this hangar. And subsequently, if that is passed in favor of waiving, I would like to see it approved to go to full county board, but I don't believe we have the appropriate resolution to approve the transfer of lease drafted and on the agenda for the meeting tonight.
You can still vote to recommend approval to the county board, even though we don't have the resolution. In this instance, sometimes the resolutions are provided for sake of convenience to move it forward. In this instance, we felt that it was not appropriate to provide those resolutions ahead of time, but certainly that is not a prohibition to move it forward. So you may still take action to move it forward.
Ben, are you good with this? You good with this?
Buying a hangar,
Harold, are you all right?
Harold's not here tonight.
Oh, not Harold.
No.
But he's good?
Yeah.
I mean, I would assume Harold, for anybody who doesn't know, all the years we flew wildlife damage for this county, Harold Burton donated a huge amount of time to this county to do that. And just, Harold donated a lot of time.
Lots, yeah, lots of things.
So, I don't need to see a resolution. I would,
Mr. Olson, just a minute, before you get too far, please.
all right,
Do we have to go through the steps of first right refusal? We do.
You do, because those steps are required under the lease, so
Yeah.
you should take them.
Lockstep.
The reason I stopped you, Mr. Olson, is I don't want to get too far.
I understand.
Because we have to do the first step would be to first right refusal for the county, so then we can move it the other way.
And we should have soon done that.
Well, we have to do that now, if that's what we want to do.
So this is the committee jurisdiction, and does anybody feel that we want to maintain that hangar for ourselves?
I do. Is that the proper step?
Yes.
So if you want to make that motion, that'd be fine.
I would move to rescind our right of first refusal at this point in time for that lease area.
To the full county board. Full county board has to say the same thing.
And we have to move to the board.
I move that to the board.
Yeah.
Can we do it concurrently with?
Unfortunately, no, because there's two separate provisions of the hangar leases.
Then there's no point in having another motion tonight until we
We
actually.
gotta come back next month.
Oh, no, you can do the waiver of the right of first refusal tonight, and then you can do the approval of the assignment tonight. Those two you could do tonight, but I'm just saying you should do those separately.
How can we do the assignment if we don't know if the county board's going to approve the refusal?
Well, it's coming up with the recommendation.
It's conditioned upon the board approving the waiver of the first refusal.
And
So
that'll be on the agenda first, before the assignment.
Huh, that's unique.
So if, let's say that the board does not approve the right of first refusal, it couldn't approve the assignment then. So the second item would, I guess, I don't want to say automatically fail, but if the county couldn't move forward with the approval if it did not waive its right of first
So
refusal.
let's go with, we have a motion for the first right refusal. Is there a second for that? So Mr. Olson made a motion, first right refusal to the county and pass on the full county board, second by Mr. Peters. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion carries. So now we can make a, Rebecca, I'm asking,
Mhm.
now we can make a recommendation for,
Correct, to approve the sale between these two parties.
so now we can make the recommendation to the full county board to approve the sale.
Approve the assignment of the lease.
Right, as
Excuse me, second, yes.
Right, as part of the sale transaction, there was an assignment of the lease from Mr. Burton to, I'm sorry, I apologize.
That seems cumbersome.
Sometimes it is.
Well, for brevity's sake, I would make that motion. I don't like it, but I would make the motion that pending county board's approval of the right of first refusal, that we recommend the transfer of lease from Burton's to the bars.
Motion by Mr. Olson, second by Mr. Peters, provided the county board approves the first right of refusal for the transfer. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Letter C, renewal rate of calculations. Number one, rate adjustment calculation sample. Two is the calculation actual. And 3 is the hangar lease inflation calculation.
Yeah, so before you, we've discussed this a few times in the past, but we've got one in front of us today, so we just wanted to review the rate calculation. As you recall, in the leases, there's a provision. Now, in the old leases, there's been a provision to adjust the rental rate for those hangars on a 5-year, every 5 years, that rate adjustment happens. And the calculation of that is what is before you today, just to reiterate the way that we're calculating these rates. So there's 2 different ways that has been suggested to do it. There's, the number 1 and the number 2. In the past, apparently the interpretation of the leases has been to calculate it under the way that number 1 was calculated. And you have to recall these leases were, established in the early 90s when there wasn't computers and Excel and internet to get this information easily. And I think it was done that way for ease rather than reasonableness. You can see on the second example there, the lease calculation actual, that does take the average of the 5 years, the preceding 5 years as it is designated in the lease language, and calculates the new rental rate for the previous 5 years. So the U.S. Bureau gives those statistics, and there's a monthly statistic that comes out. They also calculate an average annual statistic, first half of the year, second half of the year, and an annual average. So we take that annual average for the preceding 5 years to calculate the new lease rate for the upcoming 5 years. If you go to number 3 and kind of expand on that, Mike, on that graph, here's kind of the visual representation of just that graph portion as big as you can, if you could. The calculations, this is over a 30-year period. So normally those leases are 20-year leases with 10-year extensions. And we talked a lot about just, the rates on the new leases. In a prior meeting, this committee established new leases would be at a rate of 15 cents per square foot. They started out at 10 cents per square foot back in the early 90s. So this just gives a visual representation of the rate of inflation over that time as calculated by the CPI index. That yellow line is the actual increase in inflation over that period of time. And you can see if something started out in 1990 at 10 cents, 30 years later, due to inflation, that would be actually worth 20 cents. And we had that discussion and calculation at a prior meeting. This board ultimately decided that new lease rates should start out at 15 cents rather than 20, even though, due to inflation over that amount of time, 20 cents would have been a reasonable number as well. The calculations then, because there's that language in there to use the average of the preceding 5 years, that blue line takes the average of those 5 years and increases that rate. And you can see even then we lose a little bit of ground as opposed to the actual because we're only increasing it every 5 years. So even that calculation isn't perfect in keeping up with our expenses. However, the green line actually takes the 5 years and takes an average of those 5 years. And so essentially it's only 1 year's worth of inflation that gets increased under that alternate scenario. So you can see there that we're really losing ground over that length of time for the lease. It's not a reasonable calculation as far as keeping up with our expenses. And so the calculation that we're using for the old leases is that calculation represented by that blue line. And if you have any questions or comments on how that's calculated, I believe there's also people that have some comments on that as well.
So for the committee, when the committee's done discussing, there is 2 people that want to make comments on this before anybody makes a motion.
I prefer to hear them ahead of time.
Oh, okay. Mr. Marcel.
Yes.
Mr. Marcel, you want to state your name, please?
Good evening. It's Dan Marcel. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Just to set the record, I'm the principal of Hannah Bay Holdings. I'm a lesser of the hangar ground lease at an airport. And recently, as a result of my attempt to pay the annual rent due on this lease, I was advised the annual amount due would increase by 6.9%, which I believe was a number actually that Administrator Hoff just showed, based on inflation as described in the Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index for urban and metropolitan areas in the Midwest in the most recent 5-year period, 2016 to 2020. I challenge this because this increase appeared contrary to the terms of my lease, which are identical to the terms of almost all other current hangar leases. My lease says the rent, quote, shall not exceed the average of the inflation rate during the preceding 5 years. As I see the issue, my increase was calculated by failing to recognize the meaning of the word average as used in my lease, which states how my rent can be adjusted. Administrator Huff attempted to explain this calculation, as I just heard him say, by saying the CPI for each of the years used in the calculation had already been averaged, although the final CPI for each year may have been resulted from an average of a number of contributing factors. This, in my opinion, has nothing to do with calculating any changes to the rent according to the terms in my lease. Apparently, the county's understanding of the meaning of the word average is different from everybody else's. The last time my rent was adjusted under my lease was in 2016. It increased by about 1.3%, precisely $6.37, if I remember. I was able to confirm this using the same CPI table Administrator Hoff just presented to the county to justify the 6.9% increase. However, instead of using the 5-year period 2016 to 2020, I used the applicable 5-year period 2011 to 2015 for the first time my lease was increased. This previous rent increase conforms to the terms of my lease, and had the county used the same methodology in calculating the most recent rent increase as is used for the prior rent increase, my rent increase would be 1.38%, not 6.9%. How is it that the current county administration interprets the terms of my lease differently from a prior administration? I'd encourage the county to use the prior interpretation for consistency purposes to conform with the lease terms, or if unwilling to do that, to clarify how these increases are calculated by including an example in the appendix to the current leases. By the way, the CPI index the county has just used to calculate my rent increase, the CPI-U, I believe it was referred to, is for urban and metropolitan areas of the Midwest. I'd be surprised if any of you believe Sawyer County is considered an urban or metropolitan area. I'd suggest the county identify a better inflation index more appropriate to our county. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Clifton Korn. I act as the chair of the Hayward Pilots and Hangar Owners Association. I'm also a hangar owner, and I speak for myself as a hangar owner. I agree with everything that Mr. Marcel had said in regard to the increases in the lease rate. My lease and everyone else's lease also says that it can be reviewed every 5 years and increased at the average of the previous 5 years of inflation. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary and my 5th grade math textbook, average is defined as exactly or approximately the quotient obtained by dividing the sum total of a set of figures by the number of figures. It seems that the county is calculating the sum total of the 5 years of increase in inflation. That's contrary to what the lease says, And in my opinion, is an unfair increase. Not only that, but since the inception of the increases that the county has made on the annual lease, most have been between 1 and 1.3%, with the exception of one previous 5-year period when the increase was 8.6%, which involved my hangar and a few other people's hangars. And that represented the sum total of the increase in inflation over the previous 5 years, not the average. It's my opinion that if the county intends to enforce this sum total increase, good luck in court, because I think that's where this will probably go. Thank you.
Thank you. What does the committee wish to do? Anything you want to follow?
Yeah, I guess, Mike, if you want to go back to the graph there, the purpose of having an adjustment on CPI is so that the expenses incurred at the airport keep up with inflation. And, you know, it's unfair, in my opinion, that the hangar owners' expenses should not keep up with the airport's expenses. And otherwise, the extra expense that's not passed on to the hangar owners gets incurred to the taxpayer. So it's a burden on the taxpayer if the expenses at the airport don't keep track on pace with inflation. So the language in the lease says that a rate adjustment shall be reasonable. And reasonable is keeping up with inflation, and shall not exceed the average of the inflation rate during the preceding 5 years. The CPI lists the average. There's an average for each of those years. It's right there in the CPI. And even when we take that average and only adjust in 5 years, it's still not keeping up with inflation. But in accordance with the language in the lease, that's all we can do. It's reasonable. It meets the language of the lease. It's your prerogative to do something other than that if you want to. And we're just looking for direction to make sure that on these old leases, we're consistent with how you want to do it. Again, the new leases, when they expire and they have new leases, the adjustment is every year. Every year, because we have the technology to do it every year, it makes sense to keep up with inflation annually instead of that 5-year calculation. So.
Can somebody give me real numbers? I'm seeing here, you know, there's an example that the old rate is $497. The increase is $34.29 for a net of $531.29. Is that an accurate number?
That's an accurate representation of one of the leases that was at 497. So doing it, you know, if you do it with the calculation number 1, then you're going to be following that green line on that graph. If you're doing it according to calculation number 2, then you're kind of following the blue line on the graph as far as keeping up with inflation.
So are we really sitting here discussing $34 a year?
Yes, we are.
I would make a motion to go with this proposal that is in front of us today with the, what would that be for the blue line?
Yep.
Blue line? I would move that.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Olson, second by Mr. Peters to go with what's recommended by the county. Rebecca.
Briefly, I think the point or the question that Mr. Olson asked is a very good one. We are sitting here and talking about $34.29, and Mr. Hoff has had to put a whole lot of time in explaining the difference of $34.29. From my perspective, from a legal perspective, it is important to have the discussion, because if the county gives, if you will, on $34.29, then what is it going to be the next time? What is it going to be the next time? I absolutely support the interpretation that Mr. Hoff provided and that is set forth in the motion. And if the hangar tenants disagree, they're always welcome to file a lawsuit over $34.29.
Mr. Leslie.
I'd like to just point out, one of the things that's really important with this, Tom talked about it, he talked about the 15 cents a square foot for these new hangar leases. Fast forward 30 years from today, these hangar leases aren't gonna be at 15 cents. They're probably gonna be, I think I did the 30 years for last time. I think it was a 48% increase. It was, what's it on your graph, Tom? It was 20 cents. And it could be potentially even more than that. So just when we start thinking about new hangar leases in the future, we've set that 15 cents a square foot benchmark. We need to make sure that all of a sudden we don't have people with 25 and 30-year-old hangar leases that are paying 20 or 25 cents a square foot in comparison to new hangar leases at 15 cents per square foot. Just wanted to be entered into conversation that, as we do these hangar leases in the future, we have to consider if we're going to take this route, we have to consider also the new hangar lease rate moving into the future as well. Otherwise,
And we already did that,
We
so
already
that is,
no one, a new hangar owner,
Yes,
right,
that's what we did.
that's already
that
done,
base rate's 15 cents.
and that increases every year.
Yeah, so in 10 years, a new person comes to get a new hangar.
This year it's 15 cents, next year it'll be 15.3 cents, next year it'll be 15.5 cents.
I see. I wasn't aware that that's how that worked.
I assume, does this go to the full county board also? Or
Doesn't
Stacy?
have to, no.
We have a motion by Mr. Olson, second by Mr. Peters to approve. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
All right.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Letter D, airport safety plan.
Yeah, so this incorporates a couple of things. I believe the county board members received a letter from an individual with some concerns out at the airport. I did follow up with that gentleman. We had a nice, long discussion about some of the concerns that he has. He provided some more documentation to me, which I've discussed with the principals of Hayward Aviation, Derek Leslie and Todd Van Nispen. And we went over each of those items and kind of divided up, tackling some answers to those. So we've been working on that. There's some legal questions, not interpretations, but he cited some, transportation laws and some other laws that we're looking into to see what applies to the airport and how to respond to those. So we're in the midst of responding, and then we'll be meeting with the individual again and bringing back information to the committee if there's safety concerns. So Derek has been working on, safety plan at the airport. We've been working on the snow removal plan. And so those will be shared with the users of the airport as well. And we'll have more official documentation for a snow removal plan this year. Some of the other things in there have to do with like the height restriction ordinance. This gentleman asked if we had one. Yes, we do. And there's some other things in there. So we'll get back with documented answers when we get completed with the long list of items that are on the plate here.
Any questions regarding safety? What's going forward? Hearing none, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Leslie. Gonna move forward to number 8, Highway Commissioners Report.
Does anyone have any questions on the report? I got a few things to add to it. I just received the agenda for the meeting on Thursday, October 21st. If anyone's interested in attending, it's at the Vet Center in Hayward at 9:30 a.m. I tell you, the agenda doesn't look so good. I don't know what the reason is for it, but we've got a regional update from the DOT. We've got someone from the Transportation Development Association. Rake, Executive Director Dan Federley, and then we've got our WCHA past president, Mark Serby, who's also Barron County Highway Commissioner. So it goes from 9:30, closing comments 11:15. If anyone's in town wants to swing by, it is always nice to get people sitting in there when it's your home, when you're hosting it. They just had commissioner training and Rebecca spoke at commissioner training. Statewide training was held in Hayward, and this cat wasn't there. It was down in Florida, so I felt pretty bad. I missed her
So good.
little thing, but and then as far as the projects, work is continuing on the County Bridge. I heard they were pouring concrete. I have stayed away from that area. I don't think they want people messing around. We get weekly updates. Paving's been completed on all our projects, and all the striping's been done on them too. You can see we're down on we're gonna have to address the employment issue next year. I don't know what's gonna happen or how. I mean, it's not unique, as I said last time, but we're gonna have to do something because we can't continue without employees, especially mowing the roadsides and the flaggers. So, then also a couple of things I've been working on. I know it seems funny that I've been gone so much. I actually do work in between the vacations, so I do, Tom. I'm working on a federal land access program grant on County Road S. It's for 3.4 miles, I believe it is. It'll be from Pine Point Road north to 77. I requested letters of support from BIA, Town of Round Lake, Town of Spider Lake, and the U.S. Forest Service. I'm also working on a generator preparedness grant, and what that is through the Wisconsin Public Service Commission, I believe. And since we're a fueling facility out at the Highway Department, they're up to $100,000 for generator preparedness. It's like all of them, they're competitive grants. I mean, Mr. Hoffman I applied for 3 or 4 grants last year, and I got one of them. Okay. So then I also applied for STP Rural County Road E. I'm pretty sure we're gonna get that one at the north end of E. And then the last one I've been working on right now is, we've never done these before. And that's deck replacements on our bridge decks, County Road C and County Road D. Looking at those 2 bridges that qualify for rehab funds, so putting in for those 2. So.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Cooper?
Should have added, he also had a town meeting.
Oh, yeah, we had the kickoff meeting for the local road improvement program yesterday at Town of Hunter. Allowed us to host there. So we had, 8, 9 townships there, and went over the local road improvement program. That's the program that gives monies out to the county, the towns, and the municipalities. So it's a 50-50 program. And then we've only got so much money, $170,000 we have to divvy up amongst the towns, 13,000 for the villages, and 92,000, I think, for the county kids. So it isn't a huge program, but it is something. It's a shot in the arm for a lot of the towns. You have to wait quite a while to get the #1 rank. And I think what Mr. Olson is getting at is he wants to be recognized. Meteor is ranked #1 this cycle.
It's good a good feeling to have #1.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay. Yes.
I'd just like to make a comment that the striping work that's been done on the roads, I think, has been outstanding. And I know that my spouse was very anxious to see those new lines on County Road Rail. So.
All right, move forward. Letter B. We have some people that want to speak up regarding letter B before anybody makes a motion for anything also.
So just a little history on this. Rebecca and I have been working. I haven't been doing work. She's been doing the work. I haven't sent an email to her. So anyway, this is a resolution. So prior to we discussed this in August and we decided to table it for September because I wasn't gonna be present. So here we are bringing it back before the board tonight to discuss. Since last August, I found out that actually there's 2 townships that are refusing to approve a certain route.
Okay.
And possibly all routes over 35 miles an hour, you know, or just that one in particular.
As far as I know. it's-
Okay. So just that. So as we discussed in August, Rebecca's drafted this resolution.
Mhm.
You want to comment on it?
Simply that the resolution is intended to capture what the county's policy has always been. And if there's changes in, the policy interpretation, certainly those can be made in the resolution. But there's no, specific legal requirement that has to be set forth in this resolution in order to adopt that policy.
So interpreting this, if I'm right, if the committee votes to accept this resolution,
Mhm.
if a town says they will not take action on a route request, it's done.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's what the policy has previously been of the county.
It's a dual approval process.
Mhm.
yes.
Can you say that again, Gary?
If there's a route request, so say ATV Snowmobile Trail Alliance goes to a town and the process we use is dual approval through the township first.
Right.
And after they approve it, it comes to the Public Works Committee.
Yes.
If that town what this is saying is if that town chooses not to take action, which is what we heard from the 2 towns, then it would die. It would die for a lack of a dual approval process. And because that's how our original resolution back in 2018 didn't address this happening. This is now.
Right,
Yeah.
it didn't address that step of the dual
Yeah.
approval process.
Yeah.
Because that's just the way that it always was.
Yeah.
So this new issue arose and created the need for the policy clarification.
So I think as you realize, Mr. Chairman, the people are here in the audience because they don't want the road not opened. And if this is adopted, they won't have an opportunity to. And actually, that's why we've got discussion on item number C2.
The Zoom.
Linda Zilmer, 902 Holly Hill Lane, Birchwood, Edgewater, property owner on County Highway F. And I was the person that brought to your committee the Washburn County ordinance and policy example and asked you to please consider it. So I hope you do start that process. I also appeared when this original resolution was passed a few years ago to point out what I saw were flaws in the process. And I think time has proven that there are issues that that aren't being adequately addressed. So while I'm in support of the intent of this drafting to confirm that non-action by a town is more or less a de facto denial, and then this committee can't take it up, I do feel that the policy as it exists fails to recognize that essentially a local town ordinance is unenforceable. You're not going to have county sheriffs enforcing a local ordinance in all practicality, and most towns don't have their own law enforcement. So that should be addressed. So there's a number of other things in this resolution that especially in light of it's not just one town now that this situation could come up with. I don't know that the resolution is necessary. This committee can just say that we continue with the existing policy no need for the resolution, and then please work on an ordinance that helps protect public safety, and then put some kind of an ordinance in place so that law enforcement can enforce it. ATV, UTV issues have been an ongoing monthly agenda item at the town of Edgewater, and when they met on Tuesday night, we can't get enforcement of, existing statutes, and things are out of control. And for a town that opened up all their town roads, they are considering closing them, and they indicated they are not in support of advocating for opening more county roads. And they have business owners who have come to town board members and said, we don't want some of these roads maintained. So it's just, that's the situation down in that southern part of the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Bissonnette.
Thank you, Chairman. I had brought this issue up in Land, Water, and Forest this afternoon on the ATV report. The issue that I have with the resolution is under municipal approval, it states that it has to be reviewed and approved by the municipality, cities, villages, and towns, which is fine. But there seems to be a disregard or a lack of recognition for the tribe. And I'll give you an example. As you know, we got 6 townships on the reservation. We've had a number of ATV trails passed on roads within the reservation. The example I gave this morning was Gurnall Lake Road. Gurnall Lake Road is a strictly tribal community. There's no one other than tribal members living on that road. What used to be a quiet neighborhood isn't a quiet neighborhood anymore. The ATV trail, it's nonstop. And so I've been in discussion with the Tribal Governing Board on this, and they're not pleased whatsoever. In fact, the town of Hayward, Gary, well, Henry will get the brunt of it, but the town of Bass Lake and the town of Hayward are going to get letters that they need to start consulting with the tribe prior to just arbitrarily deciding, well, this road looks like a good ATV trail. So that's the problem I'm going to have with the municipal approval on this resolution, is that the tribe isn't consulted, and they should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bissonnette. Anybody else out in the audience want to speak on this matter? State your name, please.
Tim Davison, 10699W Twin Bay Road, Hayward. So if I understand this right, if this comes to this committee and it's denied, and you guys say it's dead, dead is dead, or where do people go for approval? I mean, where is the next step of government where we go?
Mr. Merletek, can you help us with that?
Yes. Actually, if this group denies or goes with this resolution, it's gonna be going back to the township. Because that's what this resolution is all about, is we have to have first approval from the township. So what you're looking at is the township that's denied, not denied, doesn't want to take action on it. You have to go back to them. They would have to take a positive action on it. We also have the other township that's denying it right now, does not want to approve it. We'd have to get approval from both. So you're not going up in government, you're actually going back down in government to get their approval first to bring back to the county.
Does that help?
That's what I needed to know. Where do you go? Thank you.
Anybody else care to speak? Okay.
Actually, if I could.
Yep.
Of course, I'm well known as an advocate for the ATV motorized recreation and such like that. Been pushing to get roads open to connect our trail systems, our businesses, and right now a lot more to our residents. There's a lot of residents that want to do that. I'm also concerned about the process of doing such. I like the process that we've got developed right now, that it goes to the townships first. I think that's very important that we do that. We need to work with our local government. We need to work with both the township government and the county government on this. I know I've been criticized in the last couple months by some townships. I think we're trying to go around them by doing this instead of working with them on it. So I think it's very important that we all work together on this. If the township doesn't agree with us, we need to work with them to convert them over.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Had a lot of emails and phone calls also from townships, and they don't want the authority to be taken away from them, which I respect that. I think there was a lot of misinformation out there to start with, but I'd like to hope most of it is cleared up. It's got to go through the township presently before it comes in front of the county. And that's what this resolution backs. Wishes of, yes.
I guess I'm just asking a question with regard to Mr. Bissonette's comments. How do we make this so that the Kootenai tribe is incorporated in this process? Because they have a large amount of property, and I think it's very important that all entities in Sawyer County be consulted on this process.
Yes, and I'm sure our highway commissioner is gonna pick up what he learned tonight also and go forward with that.
Yeah, I think in the town of Hayward, there's a different process done, but we don't go tribal, non-tribal. It's just residents. We don't differentiate between tribal and not tribal. They make contact, and there's an approval process. It's a little more tougher in the town of Hayward, so I can't speak for town of Bass Lake. That's how Hayward does it.
But actually, if I could on that, where we did, when some of those roads were open on tribal property, actually at that time, Mick Isham was one of the ones. He came to the town of Hayward meetings. He came to Bass Lake meetings. As a tribal standpoint, he was there working with the townships requesting those roads to be open. So the tribe was very involved with it back then.
And as things change, sometimes maybe the tribe just has to be contacted so they can get more involved again, perhaps.
Right. And now that I'm aware, I'll make sure I work more with them. I'm not my set.
Wishes of the committee.
So can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So on this resolution, like I said, I'm not opposed to the resolution per se, but is it an issue to include the tribe? Because they should be they should be consulted in this. And so if we're going to put it to a vote and the tribe isn't included, I'm going to oppose it. If tribe is included, I will support it.
Is that something we want to go back and look at or add to?
Brian and Mr. Chairman, if I may. So I don't disagree with you, Brian. I actually, wait a minute, where are you? Over there. I don't disagree. And having been around for a long time, sometimes the onus is on the tribe too. You know, they get the meeting minutes and see the agendas just like everybody else does. And when you see stuff like that, sometimes the onus is on the tribe to be proactive and actually go in and say, you know, I don't know if, and I'm going to run this by Rebecca so she has a chance to do it. I want to make sure, A, that there's legal standing for the tribe to be included in that. And I would not doubt that there is. But the other thing is that the township certainly, at least I'm guessing, if the tribe did show up to the meetings and say, you know, we're adamantly opposed to this, that the towns would say, yeah, we're with you. You're our neighbors. You know, we're going to deny it because you'd like that. I have no issue with that at all. And, you know, I think the dual approval is a good thing. I don't think that the county should supersede the towns. And we've had a good thing going for quite a while. If there's a process that we can have, that new trails that are on reservation property get noticed to the reservation, I think that's the least we can do. I think that would be a minimum. Standing or not, to approve or disapprove. And Rebecca, I guess that brooks that question on to you.
Would you like me to answer as well? Very good question. With respect to the legal framework of the ordinance or of the resolution, the resolution's definition of municipality uses the same definition included in the statutes. Under 2333 sub 1M, sub 1, again, municipality is cities, villages, and towns. And so I would be hesitant to modify this particular line 35 to include the tribe as a municipality. However, if the committee wants to specifically reference the tribe, it may do so. It's not prohibited from doing so. I would just recommend that you reference the tribe as a separate distinction from municipality, so we don't get into issues with conflict in statutory terms. 2333 is one of those statutes that the county, we cannot be more restrictive and we cannot deviate from the terms of the statute. So I want to take extra caution about how we use that term municipality.
Can we add on after the parenthetical cities, villages, and towns with including approval by the Kudaway tribe?
That's where I would recommend that you put it right after that parentheses.
Or including approval by the Kudaway.
Right. The question then becomes, so yes, that's why I would recommend you put it. The question then becomes whether requiring additional tribal approval is somehow a greater requirement that is set forth in the statute. And the tribe is not, tribal lands are not specifically referenced in the statute, or in my understanding it anticipated by within the approval structure. So I don't know if, Doug, if you have any insight on that. That is something I can look forward, or I can look in greater detail, but that's a deeper dive of a legal issue. So really, I think if that's something that the committee would like to add, I can address it, but it's certainly not clear within the context of this plain language of the statute.
Yeah, I guess in my concern here, if we pass the resolution, if the board passes a resolution tonight now, and the way you're talking with adding the tribe on there, they would have to actually approve it too, and if they took no action, that means that would be a.
That's what I'm worried about.
Yes, that would be a concern there, if they didn't approve those. And they might not even be affected by the route. Might not even be on reservation property, like you said.
Oh, I don't think it would only pertain to reservation property only. It would be entire
Right,
county.
like where the.
It's
It would be
absolutely,
just
right.
on reservation property.
Yeah, I think
Right.
that's what you're referring to, Brian, correct?
Yeah, I'm talking about within the exterior boundaries of the reservation, but, you know, it goes back to, you know, and I'm not trying to start anything here. I'm just saying that there's been a lack of recognition in the tribe, in our tribal government. You know, they should have a voice in here. But I will say this is that, you know, how you would define us. We're not a municipality. We're not a city. We're not a town. We're a sovereign nation, and that's where they're coming from in this. And so, yes, we recognize that the town does have ability to do certain things. However, the tribe has rights too, and they have legal remedies to this if they wanted to pursue it, because we're talking about public safety here, really. And, you know, not that they want to go down that road. And so I think just allowing them to have a say in what gets approved and what doesn't on the reservation will go a long ways in building relationships here. So.
Supervisor Bissonnette, would you be agreeable to, instead of, because we can't include it as the tribe as a municipality, how about with proper notice to the tribe within the exterior boundaries of the reservation? Proper notice?
Yeah, what does that look like though?
I would assume a letter to the tribal governing board or the clerk or to you, I guess, as conservation director.
Well, I would rather have it going right to the tribal chairman, to his attention.
You think that would be agreeable for you tonight, or?
Yeah, like I said, they need to, you know, and hopefully, you know, whatever the tribal governing board decides, I mean, I'm sure that in most cases they'll agree with the particular town. But you know, I don't know what it's going to look like if there's a town board support for ATVs, a section of trail, and the tribe is opposed to it. I don't know how that's going to end up. Hopefully they'll recognize the, you know, the tribal governing board isn't just going to arbitrarily say no. There's going to be a reason why they say no. So.
Sure. So was that a motion?
It could be.
Because otherwise I can try to craft one.
Okay, well, I mean, it's a good start, so.
Is it time for that, or do you want to keep going?
It's time.
It's time?
If you're acceptable for that.
I would make a motion to accept the resolution as presented with the addition that under under Part 3 municipal approval, that we add a caveat that within the external boundaries of the Lacouture Reservation, tribal chairman will be provided appropriate notice of the trail for the tribe's consideration.
But these are routes, these are not trails, is that correct?
Routes, yeah, I don't understand driving an ATV in a road anyhow, but that's okay.
If these were trails, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
No, that's true. Routes. And then Lynn, if you got anything close to that, I'd love to hear what I said.
Should I read it back?
Probably.
Okay. Mr. Olson, motion to accept the resolution as presented with the addition that under item 3, we add a caveat that within the external boundaries of LCO, the tribal chairman will be provided appropriate notice of the route request for consideration.
And just to clarify, right after that end friends, right? So we define municipality and then stick that right after that. So then
Yes.
the.
I don't know if you want a sub A or that's not up to me.
I like what you just read right after that, friends, and I can look at this too. But I think that's where it makes the most sense.
Can you have it exterior boundaries of the reservation, not external?
Yes, we can do that.
Sure.
Exterior?
Exterior.
That was included in your second, Mr. Bissonnette?
Yes, sir.
we have a motion by Mr. Olson to approve the resolution with a change, with an addition to it, second by Mr. Bissonnette. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I feel for these other people that aren't getting the chance that they're property taxpayers, and they pay to the townships, they pay to the county. Their town boards need to be careful what they do, and I need to be careful what I say regarding that. I'm also on a town board, and I've had a lot of phone calls, people saying, don't take the authority away from the town boards. And I believe that's what we did, is not take it away from the town boards. So, thank you. Letter C, discussion, ATV, UTV ordinance, consideration, discussion only. Gary, you want to start with that, please?
Well, this is, this is if the committee, Rebecca and I talked about it, when she was drafting this. And we said, well, what happens? So what if a town doesn't ever give approval, in a major segment or whatever it is, at some point, does the county want to look at their own ordinance? It's just discussion right now. But like you said, Chairman Kidsley, I received a lot of phone calls from municipalities that were not in favor of ours doing our own ordinance because they like that extra level of control that they have, that extra layer. Now we've actually added on another layer within the reservation boundaries. So that's something that Brian just said they would like, and that's how the towns are pretty much echoing the same thing to me.
Silver.
Linda Zilmer again, and I just want to get clarification. Towns may have their own ordinances or they may not, but I've never heard the town saying that they're opposed to a county ordinance. A county ordinance would allow county sheriffs to be able to enforce an ordinance just to keep things on balance. So I hope that the committee does consider Washburn County in the future. I don't think a county ordinance takes away a town ordinance authority, but I would leave that up for further review. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion for letter C? Now we'll move to letter D. Consideration of speed zone on Highway C, County B to east.
Okay, so this item came about as a request through the our last quarterly Traffic Safety Commission meeting. And the numerous times it's been requested to extend that speed zone of 35, lengthen it out. That can't be done just arbitrarily. That's through the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, through an engineering study, which is really just radar guns, whatever, go through where they go for the 85th percentile, what 85% of people feel comfortable with. There are some caveats to that, number of entrances. Unfortunately, this area where they want it to extend does not meet the criteria for the number of entrances within a certain number of feet. So we have, when I say we, the Public Works Committee has the ability to lower the statutory speed limit by up to 10 miles an hour. And so I just wanted to get the feel of the committee before I go forward and spin wheels, whatever. But I mean, I feel that it's a good recommendation to start a zone, a 45-mile-an-hour zone from just west of Hardin Road, real close to where anyone's familiar with the Round Lake Arena entrance is. Put a sign right there, and then that zone would extend into our 35, which is at Haskins Road. It's a distance of about 3,155 feet, which is very, it can be enforced. Law enforcement doesn't like small zones. They want to have at least, they don't ticket usually on the first sign. They don't like to. So 3,155 feet is a good Yeah, so. And I don't think that I'm not trying to pressure anyone to do it, but I don't think the problem's gonna go away. There's a lot of stuff going on there. You've got Hardin Road, you got the intersection of Double S, you've got the Tamarack Winery now. There's a lot of stuff going on in there that's within that 45, or that, I'm sorry, within 55-mile-an-hour zone. So I think it's appropriate that we do it. That's not my call, it's my recommendation. That's my recommendation.
To reduce it?
Reduce that section to 45 miles per hour. And to do that, we would have to, next month, I would bring in a resolution or ordinance before this committee, and then they would adopt it and send it on to full county board. Then it would require Lynn's publication.
And 35 still by the Marine.
Yeah. We can't go any lower than 35. Was that your suggestion or?
No.
So presently it's 55 and you want to get down to 45.
For that 3,155 feet, want to go from 55 down to 45. Yeah.
When there is a grant available for accident sites, you have to have documented proof there's been accidents at that before. Are we having rear-end collisions from people turning? Are we having issues there?
No,
Or is this
there's
just a
nothing.
law enforcement thing?
It's I don't know if we've been lucky or whatever, but there's a lot of congestion in this area for 55. I mean, but no, there's no hotspot. Nothing jumps out at you when we have our traffic safety commission meetings.
I drive it every day.
Yeah.
I haven't noticed any issues there.
Has there been fatalities for that area, like Vernal Lake Road, we worked on that intersection?
No, but requests have gone back all the way to when I first became commissioner. I get requests constantly for that area.
So could we potentially be staying ahead of the game if we did over to 45 before they do start having accidents? I don't know, just throwing ideas out.
Gary, I want to ask a question. So really what we're talking about is the Dry Town area coming off of B up to Haskins Road, huh?
This is on B,
Before Double N.
just to the west of Double N.
To the, oh, okay.
So Hardin Road, west of Hardin Road.
Oh, okay.
And there's blow-bys on Double N.
Yeah, let's turn off.
Yeah, okay.
What's the, I don't know, speed trajectory going to look like through there from 35, it goes from 55 to
55, they'll go down to 45 for 3,150 feet, then it's 35 till you get around the corner there.
Yeah.
Moreland Road, just past Moreland,
I was
then it
going
goes
the
up to 55. The difference is there's just a few residences on the other side. I would never advocate to lower that end over there. There's no businesses. There's actually a lot better sight distance going further as we're further to the east.
What's the wishes of the committee? Leave it like it is, or?
I won't vote in favor of it, so that's what I'm just saying.
I'm not gonna cry going out of here. It's a request I got from the Traffic Safety Commission, and I just want to go and through the process. This is what it is. This is why we have the Public Works Committee, and that's, I fully respected, you know, I'm not gonna disagree with anyone's decision.
If we had viable evidence that there was an issue.
And I don't have an accident history out there.
Mr. Peters, any thoughts?
Well, I guess I was just considering that we've got the 45 close to the casino, on either side of the casino for a short distance. We've got then 55 for a short distance, and then 45 again, and then 35, and then back up to 55. So we've got
But we also have 45 from the intersection of B down to Dry Town, what Brian was referred to. That's 45 through there. So we do have a 45 going right off of double I. Or right off of B, I'm sorry, on double I.
okay.
The committee takes no action. The committee takes no action. We move forward. Letter 9. Thank you for your patience, Tim. Maintenance report. Any questions and concerns? Anything you want to add to it?
No, I think we're just interviewing tomorrow. Hope to fill our open position. We're in the same boat as everybody in Hayward, and well, not just Hayward, it's all over. So not a lot of applicants, and we ended up with three applicants. So see how it goes tomorrow. And yeah, otherwise, just the times we're in.
Any questions for him? Hearing none.
Thanks.
Nope.
What kind of job is it?
That's part-time.
You're not qualified.
I would be qualified.
No. I've seen our clean heat jobs.
Just kidding.
Number 10, courtroom remodel update.
Yeah, so in your packet is the meeting minutes from the September 22nd meeting. We also had a meeting today with the construction crew, the architect, Myron Construction, and staff. And we've got this package of drawings of very detailed information on the courtroom remodeling project. So you're invited to take a look through that. It's very exciting news. But basically, between the last meeting and this meeting, we talked a lot about the security, the flow of traffic through the doors, the locks, which way they lock. Very detailed information that provides them to get a more accurate quote when we start the bidding process. So things are still moving along on target, on track. And we have another meeting. We've been meeting every other week. So we've got another meeting now.
Questions, concerns, thoughts? Over it up 2022 budget status.
Yeah, so on each of the committees, we've been having, the budget discussion. So the information in your packet contains the information that is currently in the administrator's budget. So this will be presented to the county board next week. And that is the time that the budget becomes the county board's budget. So the administrator is tasked with formulating a balanced budget and handing it off to the county board. They will then have a public hearing the following week. Then we've got one more round of committee meetings in early November, followed by the budget adoption meeting also in early November. So you'll have one more kick at the cat in committee, but three options at the county board level to discuss any budget concerns or questions that you have. And of course, at that time, you have the prerogative to change anything in the budget as you see fit. So presented today are the departments under the purview of this committee, that being the maintenance budget, the highway budget, and the airport budget. Pretty much status quo as far as staffing in each of those areas. No other additional FTEs requested or are in the budget, so it's pretty much status quo that way. The airport budget, you'll see that the revenue that is being generated due to those FBO user fees that we've put in place are helping a little bit there. The tax levy for the airport is now about just under 70,000. We were up over 100,000 a couple of years ago. The maintenance budget, that's pretty straightforward as well. The highway budget, of course, is a little bit more convoluted. Maybe if Gary has any words of wisdom on his budget. Basically, what we look at for the highway levy summary, is how much tax levy it takes to run the highway department. And that's pretty much the same, a $20,000 increase from the prior year. So certainly reasonable, but if you have any questions on the highway budget, Gary can certainly contribute there as well.
Jim, I see your building maintenance for repairs jump from 10.5 to 21. What you gonna do?
It should be the same. I was following down. Let me get back up to it. Because I believe we've got 242 line and then 247, and I believe the 247.
I guess I was going off of actual for this year. Actual this year, it's the same budgeted, but. I didn't know if you're-
Yeah, and so what happens is, I gotta get back to it here.
That's that 247 line.
Yeah, so it's probably changed now since we did some of the budget, but I'm sitting here on the line, somebody else's budget.
Page 2 of 6, it says on the lower right corner, 245.
Yeah, so right now, we're sitting at 10,488. And the only reason I keep that in when I go into budget time is because we originally budgeted 21,000. And because I don't have a crystal ball, I don't want all of a sudden go, yeah, we're sitting good. And then maybe, and it's never happened yet. But then if the county all of a sudden went, well, hey, there's some money sitting here that doesn't look like it's going to get used. And then all of a sudden we lose some heat, a few heat pumps. And then, then by the end of the year, we're back up to that 21,000. So, so I just leave it sit in there. I keep it up to 21,000. And then if there's anything that's left over, I just roll back out.
I'm good with it.
Anybody have any questions regarding the budget? If not, we'll go to number 12, future agenda items. Next month for the airport, there will be easements for the roads to get the roads straightened out. They thought they'd be ready by next month. They contacted me. And we'll certainly have updated the second quarter. That's going to move forward. It'll be ready to go out on bids perhaps by the end of December, they're looking at.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything else? Thank you for your valuable time. Meeting adjourned.